another generic wartime screenplay, or something truly spectacular? Today, I'm going to be reviewing Christopher Nolan's brand new hit movie, Dunkirk. So let's start with what Dunkirk is. Well, Dunkirk is pretty simple. It's written, directed, and produced by Christopher Nolan, and is the 10th film that he's been director of, and one of the first not to mention or feature his brother Jonathan in the screenplay. Now, Dunkirk is a film which follows the beach evacuation during World War II by the British between the dates of 27th of May to the 4th of June 1940. The film follows three main parties as they fight for survival and try to get off the beach and return back home to England. The film itself follows the land, the air and the sea in three completely dynamic and different approaches. Needless to say, in typical Nolan fashion, it features breathtaking visuals, a soundtrack worthy of an Oscar, and screenplay which is both visually and emotionally hard-hitting. Now moving on to the casting. Now some say this was the highest profile controversy of the whole film, was when it was first announced and the first trailer released and the cast announced, was that Harry Styles was used, the One Direction singer. Now some argue that it was purely to gain traction with younger audiences. However, after seeing the first trailer and listening to Christopher Nolan, it's clear to see that it was his talent to play the part that was chosen rather than who he was. Now, after a little while of watching it, I didn't even realise it was Harry Styles who was playing the part. I just seen it as another actor. Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, Kenneth Branagh, James D'Arcy and Mark Rylance were all outstanding in their respective parts. However, to me, the real star of the show was Fionn Whitehead, someone I'd never really heard of before, and I don't think many other people had. But Christopher Nolan has a real knack of finding gems of actors and giving them the real role to play, and playing such a main role in what only is his third major credited part, he does an outstanding job as playing foot soldier Tommy. Once again, I feel that Nolan has got it spot on with his casting, with a real mix of high profile names, younger stars, people coming through, and those who really you wouldn't expect to be a real good actor. Now the first thing that really hit me was the visuals. Now every Christopher Nolan film seems to be outstanding on its visuals. Inception and Interstellar are two of my favourite films all time, and the visual effects in those are absolutely outstanding. Now, in such a different film, in a wartime film, it'd be kind of different, and it really was a little bit different. It was something I wasn't expecting from a Nolan film, but it still had that real sharp, crisp visual setting that I come to expect from him. Now, the use of an IMAX lens give Dunkirk that kind of crisp feel and look to it. But Christopher Nolan has this sort of love affair with having real-life extras rather than using CGI, and once again that really came into its own. I mean, you had real battleships, real Spitfires, real people on the beaches, rather than having a ton of CGI people, you know, fake explosions, fake planes. It was all real, and that was really fantastic and gave it another dimension. Something which I think everybody's come to realise that Christopher Nolan does. And once again, it's a big part of a film. You know, you go to watch a visual film, a visual aspect of a film, and you see all this CGI. Well, Nolan doesn't do things by halves. He does things the proper way. And again, that was clear to see. And it's certainly something that I respect in him as a filmmaker. Now, moving on to sound, and as expected, it wouldn't be a Nolan film without a soundtrack worthy of an Oscar to boot. Hans Zimmer once again provides the soundtrack in his trademark way, but yet again manages to capture the emotion and time in history effortlessly, whilst being exhilarating and truly outstanding. Hans always been my favourite film scorer, but this is one of his best yet. Now, along with this, sound effects and sounds were exceptional, from the sounds of the gunfire, the planes, the waves, to the crisp sound of footsteps and the chaos of the boat's sinkings. It's all captured in such a way that engrosses the viewer and engulfs you in the movie as it would as if you were there. Now, what really caught me off guard was the lack of dialogue. As expected in the majority of modern titles, speech and dialogue is a main draw, especially where likes of comedy is involved, but the lack of it in Dunkirk is what makes it rather special. Now, in the first 5 minutes of the film, we only hear a small number of words being spoken, and this goes on throughout the whole film, especially on the beach and in the air scenes. It gives the film a really eerie feel to it, almost as if you can feel yourself there, and it's once again another one of the quirks that makes it a Nolan special. Moving on to the storyline next, and the storyline is nothing like I really expected it to be. Such is cliché with most modern titles that a single storyline is followed and seen throughout the whole film in order for the viewer to stop them from being confused or disappointed by the lack of direction. However, this is something completely different in Dunkirk, as it follows 3 completely separate stories at exactly the same time. Now, the use of 3 storylines is done in such a way that all of them meet together at some point in the middle. I'm not going to say which, but it does meet in the middle. And whilst it can be a little bit difficult to follow at times, especially at the beginning, once it's all set out and the film is starting to get into its main rhythm, it gives it an extremely canny way, and it's done so cleverly that you sort of don't realise it eventually. Now, the storyline is pretty moving. It is a true story, obviously, so it has some sort of historical resemblance, and it comes together in a really nice kind of way. So whilst I'd say that it was a little bit confusing to get used to at the beginning, and something that might throw quite a few people off, I'd have to say it is what gives it that kind of unique feel, and is something that I really enjoyed. So, is Dunkirk worthwhile seeing? Yes. If you're someone that follows hardcore war documentaries, this might not be for you, as whilst it's extremely factual, I'm fairly certain it's been dumbed down to a certain extent, or made a little easier to watch by cutting down time frames. And even if you're someone who rarely watches wartime or even Nolan films, this is certainly something worth seeing. It's deep yet easy to follow and understand a storyline, along with an exhilarating soundtrack and outstanding visuals and emotive scenes, make it another one-of-a-kind screenplay, and one which makes me believe that it could be up for many an Oscar in 2018. Now, is there something that I would change? Probably yes. Whilst this film follows very strongly the British aspect of Dunkirk, I do feel that its lack of French, Dutch and even German aspect, apart from the Luftwaffe, may well narrow down the number of interested parties that may watch it, and I probably would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the other side of things, as well as the defensive side as we see at the very beginning with the French. So, as with most wartime films, it's probably going to have opinions divided in that respect. However, that being said, so far in 2017, Dunkirk has been my favourite film I've been to see. With a great cast, deep emotive and easy to follow storyline, excellent soundtrack and audio, as well as a patriotic Brit, the telling of an iconic World War II story, it gets my approval. And it is certainly one that I will be adding to my collection once it hit the stores later this year. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will be doing many more movie reviews. Hopefully this is something that I'll be getting used to and getting a little bit better at as time goes on. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.